Now have a look into this. Actually, introduction, whatever we have discussed was mainly useful for MCQ purpose only, nothing else. Whereas from here, the real law part starts. Okay, this supply is something which you would have repeatedly learned. Okay, so this supply is nothing but the taxable event upon happening of which you need to pay GST. This supply is defined under section 7 of CGST Act. I told you any section that I am referring to from now on will be related to CGST Act. So section 7 deals with supply. This section 7 is divided into total 4 parts. 7 subsection 1 includes what are included in the meaning of supply. 7 subsection 2 exclusions from supply. 7 subsection 1a, once an activity becomes supply, its classification into goods or services is given under 7 subsection 1a. 7 subsection 3, central government on the recommendations of GST Council is empowered to notify supply of goods as supply of services and vice versa. Okay, so because once an activity becomes supply, why we need to classify it into goods or services? Because depending upon the transaction, the rates differs. If it is goods, different rates are there. If it is services, different rates are there. Time of supply is different for goods, different for services. Place of supply different for goods and different for services due to that reason. Okay, therefore this particular supply, once an activity becomes supply, that should be classified into goods or services. But when it will become supply depends upon 7 subsection 1, 7 subsection 2. Once it becomes supply, the classification depends upon 7 subsection 1a. Then what is this 7 subsection 3? Once we classify it as supply of goods, central government on the recommendations of GST Council can reclassify it into services. Once we classify it as goods, they can classify it as services. Once we classify it as services, they can classify it into goods. But right now, 7 subsection 3 they did not give anything to classify supply of goods into supply of services or vice versa. Okay, so right now 7.3 is not there. 7.1, 7.2 and 7.1a is there. In that 7.1 is inclusions. That's what we are reading first. 7 subsection 1, what are included in the meaning of supply? So 7.1a, 7.1b and 7.1c. There are 3 parts in this. In this inclusion, there are 3 points: 7.1a, 7.1b, 7.1c. 7.1a is any activity for consideration in the course or furtherance of business will become supply. Okay, so therefore, what are the ingredients in that? So there should be any activity, and that activity should be for consideration, and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. What is the coverage? Is it goods or services? Both goods and services are covered in this. And from whose point of view we need to interpret it? From supplier point of view we need to interpret, because they did not give in the law any activity. They gave sale, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, license or disposal. These are the words that is given. These are the words given: sale, exchange, barter, license, rental, lease, and then disposal. So these are all from whose perspective? Supplier perspective. Sir, only these activities are covered under supply? No. Any activity in the nature of these activities will come under supply. So any activity, if you remember, that is sufficient. And from whose perspective? Supplier perspective. Then what is 7.1b? 7.1b deals with import of services. That import of services is for consideration or without consideration? It should be for consideration. And whether it is in the course or furtherance of business, may or may not be. It may be in the course or furtherance of business, or it may not be in the course or furtherance of business. It will be coming under supply. For example, when a person subscribes for Netflix, when he takes a subscription, that is import of service for a consideration, but it is not in the course or furtherance of his business. He is importing that for his personal purpose, but then also it will be treated as supply. Okay, then we have something called as 7.1c. What is this 7.1c? 7.1c, we have certain activities. So 7.1c has got a connection with schedule 1. 7.1c has got a connection with schedule 1. Activity is in schedule 1. 7.1c is connected to schedule 1. Activities in schedule 1, even though without consideration, constitute supply. Okay, so then what are those activities? You can remember with the keyword DRIP. D for disposal of business asset on which ITC is available. I am purchasing some business asset. On purchase of that business asset, I have paid GST and I took that GST as credit. Now that business asset is disposed of, so it will become supply. Then number 2 are related party transaction, including transaction between distinct persons. related party transactions. So if there is any transaction between related persons, including, distinct persons transaction. Who are related person, distinct person, little later we will see. And then we have import of services. Again we have import of service. Already in 7.1b also we have import of service. What is the connection? That import of service is from any person, whereas this import of service is from, related person or other establishment. 7.1b import of service, any person. 7.1c import of service from a related person or other establishment located outside India. 7.1b import of service for consideration. 7.1c import of service without consideration. 7.1b import of service whether or not in the course or furtherance of business, whereas 7.1c import of service is in the course or furtherance of business. So there is a big difference between these two import of services. Then P for principal agent transaction, DRIP, disposal of business asset on which ITC availed. Then R, related party transaction including transaction between distinct persons. Then I, import of services from a related person. P, principal agent transactions. These four are covered under 7.1c, even though without consideration constant supply, only these four are covered, nothing else. And when an activity is not a supply, if it is covered under 7.2, it is not a supply. If the activity is present under 7.2, it is not a supply. Or if the activity is not covered in 7.1, it is not a supply. Because whatever is there as inclusion, the activity should be included in that. If it is not included, it is not a supply. Or certain activities which are specifically excluded from supply in 7 subsection 2, if an activity is covered there, then also it is excluded from supply. That's what this one is. Okay. Then there are certain definitions that is given in these subsections. Section 2 clause 52 goods definition, 2 clause 102 service definition, and 2 clause 13 business definition, 2 clause 31 consideration definition, 2 clause 84 person definition. So these definitions are very important from exam perspective. So that's why I have just given it here. And so what these definitions are imperative to know from this. So from this 7.1a, 7.1b, 7.1c, so for this purpose we need to know about these things. Okay. So for that we are learning here. 7 subsection 2 is exclusions from supply. So that exclusions from supply we will see little later after completing the important definitions. And this is the comparative which I have just given. Summary of 7 subsection 1. So what I told you, 7.1a, any activity, consideration is must, course or furtherance of business is must, from whose point of view? Supplier point of view. 7.1b is import of services, for consideration or without consideration, it should be for consideration. And should it be in the course or furtherance of business? May or may not be. From whose point of view? Recipient point of view. 7.1c, DRIP, in all these 4 cases, consideration is not essential. And should it be in the course or furtherance of business? D, need not be in the course or furtherance of business. Why? See, when I am disposing of, the disposal may not be in the course or furtherance of business. For example, I purchased an AC. On purchase of AC, GST is paid and I took the credit. Now what I did with this AC I donated to a old age home or an orphanage. This donation is not in the course or furtherance of business, but then also it will come under disposal of business asset. Or this AC, I gave it to one employee. I gave it to one employee. When I give it to an employee, definitely it is in the course or furtherance of business. But then also it will become supply under 7.1c. So this disposal need not be in the course or furtherance of business. But what should be disposed of is a business asset. What is disposed of is a business asset. Then R for related party transaction. So that should be in the course or furtherance of business. Of course, yes. Import of service, yes. Principal agent transaction, yes. It should be in the course or furtherance of business. Remember, always import of service, we interpret from the recipient point of view. So it is in the course or furtherance of business or not, everything should be seen from the recipient perspective in case of import of services, because a liability to pay GST is on importer of services due to that reason. But all other transactions we will interpret from supplier point of view. Okay. Then meaning of goods and services we are discussing, because this has some connection with 7.1. 7.1 says what? Any activity. That activity involves goods or services. So goods is defined under section 2 clause 52 and service is defined under 2 clause 102. What is the meaning of goods? Very, very simple. Make it simple. So means what? Any kind of movable property. So goods means any kind of movable property. And goods includes 2. Goods includes two. Number one, actionable claims. What are actionable claims? Any instrument that satisfies four conditions will be treated as actionable claims. What are those four conditions? I should have a right to receive a benefit or recover a debt, and it is legally transferable. The holder of such right is entitled to receive the benefit or recover the debt, and it is transferable and legally enforceable. Okay. So for example, you take bill of exchange. When I have a bill of exchange, I have right to recover a debt. Can it be transferred? Yes. And can it be legally enforced? Yes. And holder of such bill of exchange is entitled to recover the debt. So therefore, bill of exchange is an actionable claim. Same way, lottery ticket is also an actionable claim, because right to receive benefit, transferable, legally enforceable, holder of such lottery ticket is entitled to receive the benefit. Therefore, bill of exchange and lottery ticket is an example of actionable claim. So all actionable claims will be coming under goods. So goods means any kind of mobile property. It includes actionable claims, and it also includes growing crops or things attached to earth, which are agreed to be severed under a contract of supply. Means at the time of entering into contract, it may be immovable in nature, but later on at the time of delivery, it is movable. So therefore, it will be included in the definition of goods. Okay, then goods definition excludes two, money and securities. Both money and securities are excluded from the definition of goods. Done. So therefore, this is the meaning, means, includes and excludes. Then next, services. Service is defined under section 2 clause 1 or 2. Services means what? Services means anything other than goods. Services means anything other than goods will come under services. Super definition, okay? And services also exclude same. Money and securities are excluded from the definition of services also. Then services includes two things. What are they? Transaction in money for a separate consideration. That is, I give 1000 rupee or I give 2000 rupee note, and you are giving me 1900 rupee notes. So you are getting a separate consideration called as 100 rupees. Therefore, it will come under service. Transaction in money for a separate consideration. Whereas arranging or facilitating transaction in securities. What is this arranging or facilitating transaction in securities? Transaction in securities is excluded from goods and services. But I am facilitating the transaction in securities. Means I am a stockbroker, or a depository, or a merchant banker, etc. I am facilitating or arranging transaction in securities. So whatever money that I receive, that will be coming under supply of services. Okay. So that is this meaning of goods and meaning of services. So what is actionable claim? I told you already. Right to receive a benefit or recover a debt. Point number 1. Right to receive a benefit or recover a debt. Point number 1. Which is transferable. Point number 2. And legally enforceable. Point number 3. And holder of such right is entitled to receive benefit or recover debt. Point number 4. So these 4 points satisfied, then it will be called as actionable claim. And what are the various actionable claim examples? So the examples for various actionable claim is bill of exchange, lottery ticket, then arrears of rent. So these are some examples of actionable claims. Okay. Then meaning of consideration. So consideration is defined under section 2 clause 31. So meaning of goods 2 clause 52, meaning of services 2 clause 1 or 2, meaning of consideration 2 clause 31. So what is consideration? Very, very simple here. Listen. So consideration includes either monetary consideration or non-monetary consideration. Non-monetary means it can be in the form of goods or it can be in the form of services. So non-monetary, whatever we receive, can be in the form of goods or in the form of services. And consideration excludes subsidy from CGST. Subsidy is something called as ad hoc amount which will be paid by the central government or state government. So subsidy excludes, consideration excludes subsidy from CGST and subsidy from CGST only. Suppose it is subsidy from any other person, so definitely it will be covered under consideration. Then refundable security deposit. Refundable security deposit means whatever we collect it as deposits now will be returnable. For example, when you take a property on rent, you will pay some security deposit which is refundable in nature. So that will not be treated as consideration in their hands. Okay. So refundable security deposit. This is the meaning of consideration here. Now, consideration can be received from recipient or any other person. So presence of consideration is only relevant. For example, whenever these two-wheeler dealers provide the servicing, they will be receiving money from their manufacturer for providing free after-sale service. Even though they are not receiving any amount from the recipient, that is the owner of that vehicle, but they get money for doing servicing from their manufacturer, which means that, so consideration is not received from recipient, but from any other person. Presence of consideration is sufficient to make a transaction supply under 7(1)(a). Then consideration should be in respect of, in response to, for the inducement of, which means that, so why am I receiving that money? In respect of supply or in response to supply. I did not ask, but they gave. That also coming under consideration. For the inducement of, so they are inducing me to provide the services. So whatever money that they give me or inducing me to make the supply, that is also consideration. So therefore supply can be for three, either in respect of. So this is the batch, crash batch. This is the fees. Say 1,000 rupees is the fees. So 1,000 rupees is in respect of crash batch, in respect of. Or crash batch, how much ever you want to give, you give. So that is in response. Whatever you give is in response. Crash batch, I am not taking, but you are inducing me. You are giving me some amount and I am taking that. That is, for the inducement of. Of course, all these are not real examples. I am just giving you, for example, how to understand this in respect of, in response to, or for the inducement of. Then activity without consideration, charities. I am doing charity, I am not getting any consideration. Activity without consideration or consideration without activity. I got money, but I am not doing any activity. Donations. Both will not come under supply 7(1)(a). So just because money is there, don't classify it as supply, because for that money received, do we have any obligation to do anything? If you have an obligation to do anything, then only supply will come. Okay. So therefore, in this regard, donations you need to understand. Sir, I am getting money, sir, but I am not having any obligation to do anything. So then it will be called as unconditional donation. Unconditional donation is not a supply. Suppose if you give me donation and I have an obligation to do something in return, that is known as conditional donation. Conditional donation will be treated as supply. Okay, so you are giving me some money and I have an obligation to do something in return. Conditional donation. And unconditional donation is not a supply. Conditional donation is supply under 7(1)(a). Okay. Now, say for example, you are giving me some money and you are insisting that your name should be displayed on the top of the building which I am constructing. Conditional donation. So definitely it is treated as supply under 7(1)(a). Suppose if you give me money, you did not insist me to put your name on the top of the building. That is unconditional donation. But now, voluntarily I am putting. You did not insist me to display the name, but voluntarily I am displaying the name, because it is my duty to display the donor list at the entrance of the building as a gratitude. So you did not insist, but I am putting. Now what name should I mention? Whether I am mentioning individual name or business name. If I mention individual name, it is unconditional donation only, not treated as supply. But if I mention your business name, for example, you are Mr. X, but I mention your business name, that is X and Co, received from Messrs. X and Co, like that if I mention, so definitely it will become supply, because I am promoting your business. I am promoting your business, so therefore it will be treated as supply. This is based on the recent CBIC circular. Okay, so be careful what is received. So donations are received. Whether the recipient insists that our name should be displayed, his name should be displayed, no. But we are voluntarily displaying. What name is displayed? Individual name is displayed, not a supply. Business name is displayed, it will become supply under 7(1)(a), because we are promoting their business. Okay. Then next, meaning of person. Section 2 clause 84. So far we have seen 2 clause 52, meaning of goods, 2 clause 102, meaning of services, and 2 clause 31, meaning of consideration. Now we are discussing meaning of person, 2 clause 84. So very simple definition of person. So what is the meaning of person? Person means, person under income tax plus central government or state government will be equal to person under GST. Very, very simple. So whatever is the meaning of person, you take under income tax, that is individual, HUF, AOP, BOI, company, body corporate, society, etc. You take all that and add central government, state government, you will get person under GST. That's the difference. So central government and state government is not person under income tax, but they are treated as person under GST. And next, meaning of business. Business is defined under 2 clause 17. Why business definition is essential? Because if you see in 7 subsection 1, multiple places we have come across business. So what is that we have? First point we have seen 7.1 any activity for consideration in the course or furtherance of business. Same way 7.1b also whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. In 7.1c also except for disposal of business asset. In all other places it should be in the course or furtherance of business. So business definition is important to understand. See, try to get clarity that almost all activities are covered under business definition unless otherwise it is purely personal in nature. Example, you are selling your mobile through OLX, that will be called as personal activity, that will not be coming under business. So almost all activities are covered under business, but we need to write an exam under which place it is covered. See, every activity is business only, but where is it covered is what we need to know, because that's what we need to write in exam. Okay. So first, there is a general meaning of business and there is specific meaning of the business. So now we are discussing the general meaning of the business. Now we are discussing the general meaning of the business. So 3 points. These 3 points deals with general meaning of business. General meaning of business. So what does it say? Any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, occasion, adventure, wager or any other similar activity, whether or not it is for a pecuniary benefit. So total 7 activities here. Trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, occasion, wager. 7 activities. So trade is what? Buying and selling of goods, sale of goods. And commerce is what? Service sector, warehousing, insurance, transportation, banking, all these will come under commerce. Manufacture, conversion of raw material into finished product. Then profession, occasion, adventure. These 3 involve skill. If I have a skill and on that skill, if I am living, either it will be called as profession or occasion. So if I am living, if I am surviving, that is only my life. That is known as profession or occasion. So now if I got that skill by way of qualification, it is known as profession. If I get that skill by way of experience, it is known as occasion. And then we have something called as, adventure. What is that adventure? I am using my skill, but not for my living, out of passion. See, that's not my living. So that's out of my passion, I am earning money. So that is called as adventure, but adventure also requires skill. Okay. So these 3 will come. Wager, betting transaction or gambling transactions will come under wager. Whether or not for a pecuniary benefit means whether profit motive is present or not. Pecuniary benefit, whether or not for a pecuniary benefit. So what does it mean? So profit motive is present or not? Profit motive or not? Profit motive or not? It will be treated as, business. So that is the first point. Then these activities, these 7 activities will have incidental or ancillary. That will also come under business. For example, a manufacturer is engaged in sale of scrap arising out of manufacture. Incidental to manufacture, that will also come under business. And a manufacturer sells his car used in the business, ancillary, not incidental, but ancillary to manufacture, like that. Say for example, one banking company gives loan and for which they did not pay installment, so they repossess the car and the car got disposed of. So incidental to their commerce. You understood or not? So like that, there is a main activity. Any activity incidental or ancillary to that main activity will also come under business, and this need not be having a volume. So volume, frequency, continuity, irrelevant. Sir, I did only once. Let it be, that is also coming under business. So therefore, irrespective of the volume, frequency, continuity or regularity. So what is the general meaning of the business? Very simple here. 7 activities: trade, commerce, manufacture, adventure, profession, vocation, wager. And this, whether or not for a profit motive, its incidental and ancillary is also covered, and irrespective of the volume, frequency, continuity or regularity. These are the general activities. Now we are discussing the specific activities. What are the 4 specific what are the specific activities? So even though whether or not it is covered under general activity or not, see, it may be covered under general activity or it may not be covered under general activity, but it will be treated as business. What is that? Number 1. So first is specific activity, point number D, any supply in connection with commencement or closure of business. I'll give you with examples, so try to remember it easily, it will be understandable. So that is, say for example, you are starting a business. For the purpose of commencement of business, you procured some assets and those assets fully is not used in your business, so you're selling off those assets, that is not your business. Selling off the assets is not your business, but you sold the assets in connection with commencement of business, that is also coming under business. At the time of closure of business, you will be selling some assets in the business because you want to close down the business and leave. So whatever assets that you are selling off, that will also come under business only. Even though that sale of assets is not your business is something else. But any supply of goods, including capital goods or services, in connection with commencement or closure of business will also be treated as business. Okay. Then point number E, provision by a club, association or society to its members. So there is a club, there is an association or there is a society. They are providing services to their members, for which the members will pay some membership fee, that will be covered under business. Okay. For example, Resident Welfare Association you take, there is an apartment owners association. That apartment owners association will be providing services to the flat owners. Flat owners will pay maintenance charges, that will be coming under business. Why is it not covered under commerce? Because they are not providing this to all. They are providing this service only to limited people, that is who are the members of that group. So therefore it will not come under commerce. Then point number 1, admission to any premises, that is entry tickets. So just remember entry tickets. So entry tickets is covered under business. Then services supplied by a person holding an office which has been accepted by him in the course or furtherance of his business, profession or vocation. For example, say there is an actor. That actor has become the president of Movie Artist Association. He became a president, for which he will be getting some money. So that will be coming under this point. So services supplied by a person. Who is that person? Actor. As a holder of an office. What is the office that he is holding? He is holding the Movie Artist Association president, which has been accepted by him in the course or furtherance of his vocation. So therefore that will come under business. And another example I gave, CA becoming a central council member. Okay. Then activities of a race club, including by way of totalizer, any activity of race club. So there is a race club, they collect entry tickets, they collect parking fees, they collect tickets, and they supply food, they supply beverages. All activities of a race club, including betting transactions conducted in the race club, is covered under business. That betting transaction they may conduct or they may outsource it to some other person. So that some other person conducting betting transactions is also covered under business. Then any activity or transaction undertaken by government, even government activities also will be coming under business. Understood? Government activities also will be coming under business. So these are the specific meanings of business. So this is important because when we are writing in the course or furtherance of business, we need to write under which point it is covered under in the course or furtherance of business. For that reason, it will be useful. Okay. So we completed so far goods definition 252, service definition 2102, and person definition 284, consideration definition 231, business definition 217, 2 clause 17. So these 5 definitions, important definitions we have completed, and with this 71A in detail you understood. So any activity can be goods or services for a consideration, we understood, in the course or furtherance of business, by a person definition also we know. Now for the purpose of 71C, we have R, TRIP. In that R we have related party transaction, including transaction between distinct person. What is R? Related parties. Who are treated as related parties? There are total 9 relationships, and these 9 relationships will be treated as related persons. This is given in explanation to section 15. It is not given anywhere under section 2. It is given as explanation to section 15. Section 15 deals with value of supply. So there it is given, meaning of related is given. So look into that. I have given along with an example. So try to understand this with examples. Okay. Such persons are officers or directors of one another's business. So what does it mean? Say Mr. X and Mr. Y are having business. Mr. X is appointed as officer in Mr. Y's business, and Mr. Y is appointed as officer in Mr. X business. Mutuality, both should be there. Now X and Y are treated as related. Such persons are officers or directors of one another's business. So each other's business they should be appointed as officer. Definitely this is a related party transaction. Okay, if there is any transaction between X and Y, because they both have a mutual interest in the other's business due to that reason. Number 2, such persons are legally recognized partners in business. See here, legally recognized means the partnership deed should be registered. The partnership deed should be registered. That is the meaning. Deed should be registered. Deed should be registered. Deed should be registered. That is the meaning. Deed should be registered. That is the meaning. Legally recognized partners in business. Such persons are legally recognized partners in business. Legally recognized means the deed should be registered. Understood or not? The deed should be registered. And partners in a firm are always related. Whether firm and partners are related? No. Partners in the firm are related, but the partner and the firm is no way related. And then such persons are employer and employee. Employer and employee are always treated as related. Any transaction between them is a related party transaction. Number one, such persons are officers or directors of one another's business. They are legally recognized partners of a business, employer and employee. Then next, any person directly or indirectly owns, controls or holds 25% or more of the outstanding voting stock or shares of both of them. What is this? Say for example, Mr. A is investing 25% or more in X Limited, and he is also investing 25% or more in Y Limited. So one shareholder is common between X Limited and Y Limited. Now X Limited and Y Limited are treated as related. Okay, sir, how X Limited and Y Limited knows this information? When there is a shareholder holding so that much 25% or more, definitely that name should be registered. And what are all the other companies in which he has invested also should be known to the company. So due to that reason, okay. So one common shareholder, the two holding 25% or more in two entities makes them related, because come on here, easily they will come to know, na? That is easily the transaction can be influenced due to that reason. Then next, number 5, one of them directly or indirectly controls the other. Control is not defined. Control is not defined under GST. Okay, control is not defined under GST. So when control is not defined under GST, we need to refer to various other laws. So in that, if the investment is greater than 50%, then there exists control. Or if the majority common board of directors are there, that is common between two companies, the board of directors are common, and that too they are majority, then also it will be coming under related. Or controlling the operations. Investment may not be greater than 50%. But one company controls the operations of the other company, then also they are treated as related. Okay, so these are the 5 points. Such persons or officers or directors of one another's business, they are legally recognized partners, employer and employee. One person directly or indirectly owns, controls or holds 25% or more in both of them, makes them related. One person directly or indirectly controls the other. 5 points. Then 4 more points. Number 6, both of them are directly or indirectly controlled by a third person. See this carefully. X Limited is controlled by A Limited. Y Limited is also controlled by A Limited. But X Limited and Y Limited is not controlling each other. There is A Limited. A Limited. A Limited controlling X Limited. A Limited is controlling Y Limited. So now X and Y are not controlling, but these two parties are treated as related. Okay. That is number 6. Number 7. Together, individually they do not control, but together means two parties. Only two parties. Because always related definition should be seen between two parties. Supplier and recipient. Okay, together they control the third person. What does that mean? For example, X Limited invested 28% in A Limited. Whether X Limited controls A Limited? No. And Y Limited invested 30% in A Limited. Whether Y Limited controls A Limited? No. But together they both are controlling the A Limited. Both X Limited and Y Limited together they control A Limited. So in that case, X Limited, because together if you see the total 30 plus 28, 58%. So control exists once it crosses 50%. So therefore, these two companies, X Limited and Y Limited, will become related under this point. That is, this together X Limited and Y Limited controls A Limited. Or together they control a third person. Then point number 8, they are members of the same family. Family definition is very, very important, because it's little confusing for us. So first we need to take a person. Person's spouse will come under family. So I'm just writing it for you to understand. So if you want also, you can make note. First we take a person. So this person's spouse will be coming under family. Then this person's children means son and daughter will come under family definition. Thereafter, brother and sister brothers, sisters. Same way, sons, daughters. Spouse itself is like singular as well as plural, leave it. Then father, mother, don't understand it as fathers, mothers. So father, mother, one father only, mother, father, mother. And then father's father, father's father, that is grandfather. Then grandmother, father's mother, father's mother. See, father's mother means grandmother, parents, like father side. Same way, mother side also we will be having grandparents. That is mother's father, and mother's mother, mother's mother. Okay. So they will be coming under family definition. But in that, one more twist is there. Spouse, whether or not dependent. So they may not be, that spouse may not be dependent on that person. Sons, same, dependent or not dependent. Daughters, dependent or not dependent. But all others should be wholly and mainly dependent on that person. Sisters, brothers, father, mother, grandfathers, grandmother, everyone should be dependent on that person, then only they will be treated as family. So how can we understand the family definition? Spouse and children, whether or not dependent, and all others, brothers, sisters, parents, grandparents, if they are wholly and mainly dependent on that person. Okay, so that is the meaning of family. But now please try to understand who should be taken as this person. If it is normal services, if it is normal supply, you take person as supplier. If it is import of services, you take the person as importer of service. Please keep in the position properly. Okay, that is, if it is normal supply, who should be taken in this person? So we should take supplier. If it is import of services, we should keep in that person definition recipient. Okay, we should keep in the person definition recipient. Why it will change? So let's try to understand this with an example. So what is that example here? So example 1. Say, sir, for example, there is Mr. Ramana, who is father of Mr. Shyam. So Mr. Shyam is son of Mr. Ramana. And this Mr. Ramana is not dependent on Mr. Shyam. Not dependent. Okay. Now in this case, Ramana is in India, whereas Shyam is also in India. Now Ramana is not dependent on Shyam. Okay, but Shyam is dependent. Shyam is also not dependent on Mr. Ramana. Not dependent on Mr. Ramana. Okay. So therefore, in this case, when Ramana makes supply of goods to Mr. Shyam, is it a related party transaction or not? What is your answer? Is it a related party transaction or not? Mr. Ramana makes supply of goods to Mr. Shyam. Is it a related party transaction or not? Definitely it is a related party transaction. So it is a related party transaction because we need to see the person as father. We should see the person as Mr. Ramana. For Ramana, Shyam is son. Son, whether or not dependent, will be treated as related. So therefore it is a related party transaction. It's a related party transaction because son need not be dependent on the father. You understood? Like that, we need to change the stance and properly interpret it. This is where in exam many students will make mistake. Then there is one question. That is, sir, in together control, they should take only 2 or more than 2, only two. If you take more than 2, then all shareholders of a company together control the company, then shareholders will be treated as related. So we should take only 2, dear. So supplier and recipient, only 2 parties should be taken, and whether those 2 shareholders control the company or not, we need to check. Yes, then those 2 shareholders will be treated as related. Any 2 shareholders you take, okay. Now another example we are discussing. Example number 2. Example number 2. So same example. Mr. Ramana and his father of Mr. Shyam, and Mr. Shyam is son of Mr. Ramana. Mr. Ramana is not dependent on Mr. Shyam, and Mr. Shyam is not dependent on Mr. Ramana, and Ramana is located in Germany. Whereas Shyam is located in India. Now services are being provided. So it is import of services. Tell me whether it is a related party transaction or not. Import of services here. Import of services. Why it is import of services? Because Shyam is in India and Ramana is outside India. Import of services. Is it related party transaction or not? Is it related party transaction or not? Think and answer. I want you to answer. Is it related party transaction or not? So it is not a related party transaction. Not related. It is not related. Why it is not related? Because import of service from a related person. So therefore, now who should be replaced in the person definition? In the person definition, you should replace Shyam. So for Shyam, his father. For Shyam, his father will be related only when the father is dependent. So therefore, here it is not that way. Therefore, it is not a related party transaction. Okay. Not a related transaction because father is not dependent. Father is not dependent. So therefore, when it is a normal supply, it becomes related. But when it is import of services, it becomes unrelated. So this is the point which I wanted to convey to you. Why it is related? Related as son may or may not be. As son may or may not be dependent. As son may or may not be dependent. Okay. But here it is not related because father is not dependent. So therefore the position changes. So these are all the points which you should be knowing. Therefore the person who should be kept in that person definition. If it is import of service, keep importer in that person. If it is normal supply, keep supplier in that person, so that you will be able to understand. Then next I am moving on to point number 9. Sole agent or sole distributor or sole concessionaire, whatsoever called. That is, when all the supplies are made through one agent only, and directly supplies are made by the manufacturer to the buyer, but all sales are through one agent only, then that agent will be called as a sole selling agent. These are the 9 relationships called as related parties. Okay. So this will not be asked as such, but in a question, you will be required to identify whether it is a related party transaction or not. So this is about related parties. And then let's see distinct persons. So this distinct persons also we need to know why. So DRAP are for related party transaction, including transaction between distinct persons. So the distinct persons we need to know. So look into meaning of distinct persons. What is distinct person? Every registration of a person, one registration of a person to the other registration of a person is known as distinct persons. Is it clear or not? One registration of a person to the other registration of a person is known as distinct person. So when there will be more than one registration, if you are doing business in more than one state, definitely you need to get a separate registration. If you are doing business within the same state, then it is optional for you whether to go for separate registration or you can continue with the single registration by giving one place as your principal place of business and other place as your additional place of business. Suppose if you are located in the same state and that you have the same place, multiple businesses, you are not required to get a separate registration. Separate registration also will not be given to you. Now, when you have more than one registration to the other registration, if there is any supply of goods or supply of services, it is known as transaction between distinct person. Transaction between distinct person constitutes supply under 7(1)(c) even though without consideration. So therefore, branch transfers and stock transfers now will be chargeable to GST. If it is interstate branch transfer, definitely it will become supply, because when you have registrations in two states, you are mandatorily required to get, like when you have businesses in two states, head office in one state, branch office in the other state, mandatorily you are required to get registered. So therefore, it will be coming under supply. But within the same state, it is optional for you whether to go for separate registration or not. So only when you have separate registration, it will be treated as transaction between distinct persons. Otherwise, it is not. Okay. So therefore, one registration of a person to their another registration is known as distinct person. So this is about definitions that we need to know for the purpose of DIRP, disposal of business asset, import of service, related party transactions, and principal agent transactions. Now we are moving on to exclusions from supply. So this is the flow chart of distinct person. Okay. Next, within the same state, branch transfer, GST come or not. It depends upon whether we went for separate registration or not. Within the same state, if we go for separate registration, yes, it will come under distinct person. But within the same state, we have an option to go for single registration, then it is not chargeable to GST. Then, sir, when will the company go for different registration in the same state? Suppose if they want to maintain, records and all separately, independent branches. In case of independent branches, they will be willing to go for separate registration. Like dependent branches, independent branches are there. Independent branches, they will operate separately, then they go for separate registration. Sir, if in another state they have not registered, then the transfer between that branch leviable to GST. While they will not be registered, definitely they will be registered. So definitely they will be registered even if they are not registered. So they are liable to register, therefore that will be coming under transaction between distinct person. And then, yes, compulsorily they need to register. Like we need to register in every state from where we make taxable supplies. Suppose if we are making exempted supplies in that place, then we may not register, but then also it will be treated as a distinct person. I am moving on to the next area, that is exclusions from supply. Exclusions from supply I am discussing, that is given under 7 subsection 2. What are all excluded from supply? Let's try to understand that. Supply excludes what? This supply excludes is given under schedule 3. 7 subsection 2 read with schedule 3. So yes, for sovereign functions of government, that is all activities of government other than the following. Means these 4 activities are covered under supply and other activities are excluded from supply. So these 4 activities are there. These 4 activities, Department of Post, then transportation of goods or passengers, airport or port, and services to business entities, these 4 are covered under supply. And apart from these activities, all other activities are excluded from supply. All other activities are excluded from supply. Only 4 activities are covered under supply. That is Department of Post, then airport or port services, transportation services, services to business entities. Then P for post. Post refers to constitutional post, nominated post, or government post. So government post refers to MPs, MLAs, etc. will come under government post. Constitutional post refers to, we have these people called as per constitution, Supreme Court Chief Justice, or collectors, governor, president will come under constitutional post. Then nominated post refers to, there are certain bodies under government. To these bodies, some people will be appointed as the head of that body. For example, CBI director, SEBI chairman, RBI governor, all these are examples of nominated post. Okay. So this is also excluded. So you can remember this with the keyword spelled slow. Spelled slow. In that, yes, we completed, P we completed, A. Actionable claims other than lottery, betting and gambling. Actionable claims other than lottery, betting, gambling, which means lottery, betting, gambling is only covered under supply. But sir, actionable claim is covered under goods definition, but only 3 actionable claims are covered under supply. All other actionable claims are excluded from supply. They are lottery, betting and gambling. Then L for legal fees collected by the court or tribunal. So court or tribunal will be collecting something called as legal fees. So at the time when we file a litigation or an application, they will be collecting some fee, court fee or tribunal fee. That is also excluded from supply. Then next, land sale. Any sale of land, sale of immoral property will not come under goods, but it may come under services. That's why they have excluded the sale of land. So sale of land is not covered under supply. Same way, sale of building also not covered under supply. Sale of building, what happens when it is not covered under supply? When entire consideration is excluded, when entire consideration, when it is excluded, we are discussing. When entire consideration is received after completion certificate. Say completion certificate is there. I have just given this as sale of flats. So see this. See this chart. GST implications on sale of flats. So you will get an idea. Yes. GST on sale of flats or buildings. There is a completion certificate or first occupation. Before that completion certificate or first occupation, entire consideration is received. That is covered under supply. GST is payable and it is treated as works contract service. Suppose if entire money is received after completion certificate, if entire money is received after completion certificate, okay, after completion certificate, then GST is not payable. GST is not payable, it is excluded from supply. Whereas if part of the consideration is received before and remaining part is received after obtaining completion certificate, that is also covered under supply. So what is excluded from supply? When entire consideration is received after completion certificate, it is excluded from supply. Otherwise, it will be covered under supply. Now, in the last case, you may get a doubt like, sir, part is received before and part is received after. Whether entire consideration is chargeable to GST? Yes, entire consideration is chargeable to GST in this case. Treated as works contract service. So now, that consideration can be, that money received can be monetary or non-monetary. What is the meaning of CC? CC or FO, whichever is earlier. CC refers to completion certificate. Completion certificate will be issued by the competent authority, like local authority, municipal authority, etc. Whereas first occupation is the date on which one flat is occupied by a person. The date on which one flat is occupied by a person. So for example, there are 100 flats. So 100 flats, one date, one first flat is occupied by a person. So that date is deemed to be completion. That's why we have CC or FO, whichever is earlier. But there is a loophole in that. Definitely we can manipulate this. We can manipulate this. So therefore, what is excluded from supply? CC or FO, whichever is earlier. Sale of building. When entire consideration is received after completion certificate or first occupation, whichever is earlier. Then E. So S, P, A, L, L we discussed. S for sovereign function, P for post, A for actionable claim other than lottery, betting, gambling. Then L for legal fees. Another L is for land sale, including sale of building, where entire consideration is received after obtaining completion certificate. E for employee to employer in the course of employment. Somewhere we discussed about related parties, employer and employer related parties. But employee rendering services to the employer in the course of employment is excluded from supply. Then we have death related, funeral, burial, crematorium, mortuary, including transportation of the deceased. This is PALD. Then slow. S refers to sale on high sea basis. High seas means the goods are in import. The goods are imported. It is not reaching India. It is in transit. Now you have the document of title called as bill of lading. That bill of lading you transfer to some other person. So this transfer of bill of lading, you get some money. Are you required to pay any GST on that? No. Because the person who is having bill of lading will claim the goods from the customs authorities and he will anyhow pay customs duty including IGST. Therefore, you are not required to pay any GST on that. Then this is known as sale on high sea basis. So the goods are in transit. You got a document of title called as bill of lading. You sold it to some other person. You got some money. No GST on that because the other person will be clearing the goods from the customs. He will pay customs duty along with IGST. That's why. Then that is yes. Then L refers to liquor license. So state government in some states will be granting license to sell liquor. Sir, sale of liquor is excluded from supply because non-taxable supplies, if you take alcoholic liquor for human consumption. So therefore sale of liquor is excluded from supply. This is not sale of liquor. So state government is granting the license to sell liquor for which state government gets some money. That is also excluded from supply. but only state government granting license to sell liquor. Suppose I got the license, now I am transferring this license to some other person, now I get some consideration, that will be covered under supply. Okay, that is not excluded from supply. That is about liquor license by state government. Then SLO, O for outside the country movement of goods. For example, you take, and the supplier located in India. You are my recipient, you are also located in India. I have a branch in Germany. You have a branch in Australia. I am sending goods from my branch in Germany to your branch in Australia. Outside the country movement of goods. Even though we both are in India, but goods are moving from outside India to outside India. Both starting outside India, ending outside India. Just money is received here. That will not come under supply. And then we have warehoused goods sold under customs. What is this warehoused goods sold under customs? So like high sea sales, we placed an order with the foreign seller. The goods are delivered to customs, and from customs we cleared the goods to the customs warehouse. I cleared the goods to the customs warehouse and without payment of customs duty. Now what I do, these warehoused goods I am not clearing. I sold these warehoused goods to some other buyer. I got money. That money, whatever I am collecting, is excluded from supply, because that other person will be clearing the goods from the warehouse upon payment of customs duty, just like high sea sales. But only difference is that in this case the goods are under the customs warehouse. Okay, so therefore whatever money that I receive will be excluded from supply, because anyhow he will be paying GST including customs duty on that. Okay, due to that reason. So this is about SPALD slope, which are excluded from supply. You have to remember this. And then there is one more pointer related to employer-employee relationship. That is, so services provided by employee to employer. See this I am just discussing. Services by employee to employer. Services by employee to employer. Now, if it is in the course of employment, in the course of employment, services by employee to employer in the course of employment means what? They are working as an employee. They are working as an employee, and that is as per the employment contract. This is not a supply, excluded from supply. Not a supply. This is excluded from supply. Now, services by employee to employer may not be in the course of employment. Not in the course of employment. Not in the course of employment. If it is not in the course of employment, we need to check whether it is in the course or furtherance of business of the employee or not. In the course or furtherance of business of employee. In the course or furtherance of business of employee. Not in the course or furtherance of business of employee. Not in the course or furtherance of business of employee. Means what? Personal activity. Means what? Personal activity. So personal activity will not come under supply. Personal activity will not come under supply. So it is not a supply. Definitely it will not come, because 7(1)(a) says it should be in the course or furtherance of business. So therefore it will not come under supply. If it is in the course or furtherance of business, that may be for consideration or that may be without consideration. That may be for consideration or that may be without consideration. That may be for consideration, that may be without consideration. If it is for consideration, it will become supply under section 7(1)(a). Supply under 7(1)(a). That is, there is an employee who is rendering some services to the employer, but not in the course of employment. Then in that case, if it is for consideration, it will come under supply 7(1)(a). Example, a chartered accountant employed as an employee in an organization as a finance manager, but he is doing audit which is not in the scope of work. For doing audit, he got some money. So that will be coming under supply 7(1)(a). Suppose if it is without consideration. If it is without consideration also, it will become supply under 7(1)(c). Why it will become supply under 7(1)(c)? Because employee and employer are treated as related. Due to that reason, it will become supply under 7(1)(c), provided it is known to the government. Otherwise, it cannot be identified. So this is with respect to services by employee to employer. Now opposite we will see. Other will also as related supply. That is, not related, yes, related, correct. So because employee and employer are related. Now we are discussing the other aspect. This is what employee to employer. Now let's take services by employer to employee. Services by employer to employee. Services by employer to employee. So services by employer to employee. So this will be divided into two. Services by employer to employee. It may be for consideration or without consideration. For consideration means, say for example, employer is providing canteen facility to the employee. So in that canteen facility, food is being sold for which they get the consideration. That will become supply under section 7(1)(a). Suppose if it is without consideration, say for example, it is without consideration. When it is without consideration, we need to know whether it is, when it is without consideration, we need to know whether it is in a perquisite or gift. When it will be called as perquisite, if it is mentioned in the salary offer document, mentioned in offer document, then it will be known as perquisite. If it is not mentioned in offer document, then it is known as gift. When it is perquisite, it forms part of salary. Perquisites form part of salary. So salary by employee to employer, like salary for services by employee to employer, is not a supply. Salary will not come under supply, no GST on that. But if it is a gift, this is further divided into two. What is the value of the gift? Gift less than or equal to rupees 50,000 per annum per employee. So gift is how much? Less than 50,000 per annum per employee, or gift exceeds rupees 50,000 per annum per employee. Okay. So if the gift does not exceed 50,000 per annum per employee, then also it is not a supply. If the value of the gift exceeds 50,000 per annum per employee, entire value treated as supply. Under section 7(1)(c). Why 7(1)(c)? Because related party transaction without consideration. For gift there is no consideration due to that reason. So as and when in a year the gift value exceeds 50,000, the total value of the gift, entire gift, will be treated as supply and chargeable to GST. So this is about employer-employee relationship, and in this regard only I just gave you this point. Gifts by employee to employer up to 50,000 per annum per employee, per annum per employee, should be excluded from supply. Here very important point is that gift should not be covered under salary offer document. If it is covered under salary offer document, it is known as perquisite. So when it is a perquisite, that is excluded from supply fully. Then next. So this summary already we discussed. So exclusions from supply fully over, and now we are looking into meaning of various supplies. See, 7 subsection 1 we completed, 7 subsection 2 also we completed, and we are looking into some key definitions. That is taxable supply, exempted supply, non-taxable supply, and zero rated supply. Already we know zero rated supply. Zero rated supply means, so exports and supply to SEZ is known as zero rated supply. Then what are non-taxable supplies? Non-taxable supplies means only two, that is alcoholic liquor for human consumption and petroleum products. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Suppose if the alcoholic liquor is for use in the medicines, that will be coming under GST. Suppose if the alcoholic liquor is used for making any goods like this varnishes, paints, etc., syrups, medical syrups and all will contain alcohol, that will not be coming under alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Even cooking wine also will not come under alcoholic liquor for human consumption, that is covered under supply. Only alcoholic liquor for human consumption is excluded from ambit of GST. That's why it is covered under non-taxable supply. So there is no GST on alcoholic liquor for human consumption, but the other indirect taxes, existing indirect taxes like state excise duty, CST and VAT will be applicable. Thereafter, second product, that is Petroleum products. How many petroleum products? 5 petroleum products. What are the 5 petroleum products? Petroleum crude oil, petrol, diesel, aviation turbine fuel, natural gas. These are the 5 petroleum products which are excluded from the GST, ambit of GST itself, not covered. And what about the other petroleum products? For example, kerosene oil, covered. LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, used at our home, covered under GST. And what about engine oil and lubricating oil, etc.? All those are covered. Only these 5 are excluded from supply, that is crude oil, petrol, diesel, aviation turbine fuel, and natural gas. So these are called as non-taxable supplies. These are the only non-taxable supplies that we have. And then we have exempted supplies. What is exempted supplies? 3. Notified as exempted, nil rated, and non-taxable. These 3 are treated as exempted supplies for the purpose of payment of GST. These 3 are exempted supplies for payment of GST. What are they? Notified as exempted. Some services or goods will be notified from time to time. So that will be called as notified as exempted. Nil rated means the rate of GST is nil. Don't get confused between nil rated and zero rated. Zero rated does not mean the rate is zero. That is different. Zero rated means exports and supply to SEZ. Nil rated is different. The rate of GST is nil, and nil rated will come under exempted supply. And then non-taxable supplies, that is alcoholic liquor for human consumption and petroleum products, will also come under exempted supplies. Okay, because exempted supplies includes non-taxable supply. Here, sir, if there is no GST, will it be treated as non-taxable supply? No, not like that. So not a taxable supply. You can call it as a not a taxable supply, but when there is no GST, we cannot call it as non-taxable supply. Only 2 are non-taxable supplies which are not covered under the levy of GST. So that only will be called as non-taxable supply. Then what is taxable supply? Balancing figure. That is when a supply is not covered under exempted or non-taxable, etc. The balancing figure will come under taxable, on which we need to pay GST. Sir, whether taxable supply includes exempted supply? No. Taxable supply do not include exempted supply. Taxable supply is separate. Okay. Try to understand this. Then next we have, what are the goods not liable to tax? Already I gave you this. Okay. Then what is the meaning of aggregate turnover? All these supplies, whatever we have discussed, will come in aggregate turnover definition. Taxable supply will come, exempted supply will come, non-taxable supply will come, and even zero rated supplies also will come in aggregate turnover. Please see, aggregate turnover means taxable supply. Why aggregate turnover definition is useful? It is useful in many places, mainly for determining whether a person is required to get registered or not. Whether a person is required to get registered or not, it is useful. So aggregate turnover, what will come? Taxable supply will come, exempted supply will come, exports, zero rated will come, and interstate supplies also will come. Interstate supplies, supply to SEZ is a deemed interstate, so that will come. And aggregate turnover, remember, it should be computed on an all India basis. It will never be computed state-wise. It will be computed on an all India basis with respect to all the businesses belonging to the same permanent account number. For example, under my permanent account number, if there are 4 businesses, all 4 businesses turnover will be added. But aggregate turnover definition excludes only 2. Taxes will not come in aggregate turnover. That is simple. Taxes will not come in aggregate turnover. Even inward supplies on which tax is payable under reverse charge base also will not come in aggregate turnover. What is the meaning of inward supplies? Purchases. Purchases will not come under aggregate turnover. Is it clear or not? Because turnover means sales. Purchase will never come in aggregate turnover. So this is the meaning of aggregate turnover under GST. Then next we need to understand. So that is, see this, actionable claims. Actionable claims is divided into 2. Those actionable claims which are covered under the definition of money. So money is excluded from goods and services. But there are some actionable claims which are given under money definition. That is, this promissory note, bill of exchange, check and all. That will not come under goods, not come under service. But other actionable claims will come under goods. But in that other actionable claims also, only 3 are covered under supply: lottery, betting, gambling. All other actionable claims are excluded from supply. Now, so we need to know now, once an activity becomes supply, it should be classified into goods or services. How to classify it into goods or services? Very, very simple. If there involves transfer of title, it will be treated as supply of goods. If there involves transfer of right to use, it will be treated as supply of services. Okay. So whenever there is a transfer of title, supply of goods; transfer of right to use, supply of service in relation to movable property. Immovable property, transfer of title will never come under goods, because So sale of land, sale of building is excluded from supply. But construction service, renting, etc. will come under supply of services. There are three notified services which will always be treated as services. There are three notified activities that involve supply of goods and supply of services which will always come under supply of services. What are those three? Number one, works contract. What is a works contract? Works contract means contract involving transfer of property in goods as well as supply of services. For example, there is one building to be constructed. You give me the job of constructing the building. So I will construct the building, I will buy the material required, I will also provide you the services. So both elements are there. Transfer of property in goods and supply of services, for which it is in relation to movable property or immovable property. Immovable property. It is not in relation to movable property. And against a single consideration. So this works contract involves both goods and services, but it should always be treated as supply of services. Then there is something called as job work. So job work is, number two is supply of food. Supply of food. So number one, works contract. Number two, supply of food. Supply of food will also be treated as supply of services, even though there exists an element of goods. Number three, information technology software. Information technology software will also be treated as supply of services, even though software involves both goods and service element. How the software can be given through a pen drive, etc., that will always be treated as supply of service. These three. What are these three? Works contract, supply of food, and information technology software will always be treated as supply of services. Then what about job work? Job work means carrying out the process on the goods belonging to other person is known as job work. When I do the process on the goods belonging to other person, that other person may be registered or that other person may not be registered. If that other person is registered, then the activity is known as job work. If the other person is not registered, then it is known as supply of some other services. If it is job work, the rate of GST is 6% or 12%. But if it is some other services, the rate of GST is 18%. That's the only distinction. Okay. For example, you give me a tape, you give me furniture, like you give me wood, I'll make furniture and I will give it to you. You are a registered person. Now the rate that I charge will be 6% or 12% because this is job work, because you are a registered person. Suppose if you are unregistered person, I will do some process and hand over the goods to you. That is, I will do furniture and give it to you. But in this case, I will be paying GST at the rate of 18% on the job charges, whatever I receive. So that is the distinction between job work and some other services if the recipient is registered or unregistered. Then next, with this, we completed, supply.